Let's talk about some excellent study tips on how you can study for your dental anesthesia assisting exam. So, these study tips are going to help you manage your studying so you don't feel like you're just wasting your time or not spending enough time or spending too much time and get you to pass your exam. So, the first thing I tell all of my students is make sure to allow yourself enough time to study. If you plan to study 2 weeks before you take the exam, that's not enough time. But also, if you plan to study a year before you take the exam, that might be too much time. And even if you retain the information from what you're studying, you're not going to remember it. You're going to have to study consistently to not lose any of that information. So, what everybody should do is allow yourself enough time. I tell students 3 months would be fantastic, even 6 months would be okay too. But if you're the type of person where maybe you're taking the exam in a month and you're like, oh no, I don't have 3 months to study. Don't worry. I'm going to tell you how to really maximize your study time no matter how much time you have. So, what you need to do is you need to figure out your own schedule. Do you work full time? Do you have friend, family commitments? Are there just other things you have to do where you can't study 6 hours every day? I tell students to study 2 to 6 hours every day until you take the exam. 2 hours is going to be for those people who work full time. You can't expect yourself to work full time and then you have family to attend to. You have a life as well. And then you expect to study for 6 hours at night. That's not going to happen because you are going to get anxious. You're going to get stressed out. You're not going to get enough sleep. And then that provides you other problems. So if that's more like you, then 2 hours needs to be doable. And I say needs because if you push off your studying and you're maybe studying an hour here and there, you're not going to be able to study enough. You're never going to retain that information that you need to. You'll be studying an hour one day and then you'll come back the next day, restudy what you did last night, and then maybe the third day restudy what you did the day before. But an hour just isn't long enough to retain the information. It's going to take you a week to retain that information. Where if you just allowed yourself even just 2 hours every day, it's much easier to study, retain the information, at least on day three. So I do explain this a little more if you're inside my Dentalelle DAANCE study group, the Dental Anesthesia Assistant Study Group, where I go through all of this in a little more detail, or just feel free to comment below and I'm happy to explain this a little more to you. But rest assured, study 2 to 6 hours a day until you take the exam, and this will help you. Another thing you have to keep in mind is if you can only devote 2 hours a day to studying, you're going to need to study more than that person who can devote 6 hours a day. As an example, if you can only do 2 hours a day, then you want to study for at least 3 months if possible to really make sure you get through all the material. If you can study 6 hours a day, then you can probably take off Thursday and Friday or Saturday, Sunday to give yourself a break because you were able to get more studying in. And every student is different. You might find you're reading that material, let's just say on pharmacology. And you're reading it, and then by the second day, you have to reread it again. And then by the third day, you're like, okay, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to retain the information. Typically, when I study for something, it does take me about 3 days. I've had students tell me it takes them about 4 days, or other students tell me they can retain it the first day, and then the second day, they feel like they're, on the right track. So every student is different. Figure out what works for you. Do you need to read something and then write it down and summarize it? And that's how that works for you to retain the information? Or do you need to read something and then step back, think about it in your head, and then reread it, step back, think about it again? Does that work for you? Or do you need to write everything down, highlight it, whatever works for you? But you need to figure that out. I've had plenty, hundreds of students in my study guide course, and I can tell you there's so many different study habits that might work for this group of people, but then for the next group, they're like, no, that doesn't work for me. That is why I do offer a variety of studying inside the course. You will see teaching videos where I'm teaching you the topic on, let's say, the different body systems, on blood pressure, on vital signs, you know, all of that that you need to know for the dental office. But then there's also PDF documents where if you decide to read through that material, kind of like a textbook, but more exciting than a textbook, because I summarize the textbook for you in those PDF documents. So maybe you like to read through things first, or maybe you just want to take some mock exam practice, case studies, interactive quizzes to really test your knowledge and see if you understand what you've been studying. I have all of that inside the course. What I tell my students is go through module 1 first, and then module 2, and then module 3. So maybe you want to read all of the PDF files on all of the topics you have to know, but then you want to listen to me teaching you those topics and then take the mock exam practice and quizzes after that. So there's kind of a variety of resources. But back to the studying, just remember to give yourself a break as well. You can't expect to read, let's say, a chapter and then know that entire chapter by the next day. This is what studying is all about. You need to study and go back to it. Give yourself time to retain the information. It could take 3 days. And then you've retained it, you feel good, and then you move on to another topic to then do the same thing. Study that for 3 days, 2 to 6 hours every single day, and then you can start to retain the information after the second, third, or maybe even the fourth day. But see how this is going to take time. If you're taking the board exam, or sorry, not the board exam, a dental assisting anesthetic exam in 2 weeks, well, you'd really have to study 6 hours a day to really catch up and make sure you know everything, right? So take your time, study, but give yourself a break. Understand you can't possibly know everything. It's kind of like riding a bike. You're not going to be perfect the first time you do it. It's going to take time, but then you're a pro and you don't have any issues. So it just takes time. And if you need the extra help, I can absolutely help you. I have study guide courses, mock exam practice, all kinds of things for you to get you to pass that exam. Because typically, your office knows you're taking the exam, your dentist knows, your boss knows, and there's a lot of pressure. Try not to feel that pressure. If you don't pass, there's always another time, but of course, we want you to pass the first time. So maybe tutoring, maybe a study course is what you want to do. I would highly recommend that so you can almost guarantee you'll pass the first time. If you go through all of the modules, all of the steps, all of the teaching videos, all of the study guides that I have inside my Dentalelle course, you will pass because I'm telling you what to study, when to study, and how to study. So it takes the guesswork out of it. You don't have to do it on your own. I'm doing it with you. And we also have a group on Facebook where you can network with other people who have taken the exam or are about to. So we have unlimited support all the time, which is super super nice. So everybody, good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, comments. I know you can pass your exam and then you can get started to really do what you want to do. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you need anything, and I'll see you in the next video.